Hello and welcome. It's Brett Ford with Unchained Souls here. I am going through and I am finally doing another video of how all existence works and the inside and the out. All of that, I will explain it to you. How did I come to this knowledge? Through my meditations, through working with my spirit guides, blah, blah, blah. If you don't believe it, it is what it is. Use it for entertainment purposes only. That's what this is. Do you? This is just my understanding from how it has been explained to me through my guides, through my connection with Source, my higher self, all of that jazz. As you can see, there's a lot going on here, so we will just get into it. So we will work from left to right, as most things do. This is a manga comic. Here we go. Okay, so let's imagine that the little black piece inside this white bubble symbolizes the negative aspects of all things. So when we see the classic yin and yang symbol, all of that stuff, there is darkness in the light as there is light in the darkness. That's why if you're a very empathetic person, you may feel and sense that light within the darkness. So if you're around a dark person, a dark entity, a dark thing, they don't have the same light. And I wasn't actually planning to explain this in this video, but I think it's kind of necessary. It's interesting. I had an experience with some. I don't know if many of you have seen. Some of you may have the little. What are they called? The orbs, like orbs and things like that. So when you see a positive consciousness, there's typically a like colorful, or it can be like a bright light, all of this stuff. And when you actually interact with negative spirits or entities, now there is a difference actually even in filming ghosts versus filming spirit. Spirit doesn't always come in the same, but orbs, even there are negative spirits. There are negative beings even connected in spirit, and that's something we have to hold space for. They typically will show up in a grayish almost I don't have a picture with me right now. I actually do have a picture, but they kind of come in with like a very dull color. And now there is a little bit of a ring of light around the outside, but their primary color is like this like dullness to it. But we are all these little sparks. I'm pointing at the screen as if you can see. We are all these little lights here. So we're going off. This is just a visual representation so you can understand it. So if this whole big white spot is God, is source, is the source point, and I've given you a visual, so everything out, everything is source. So ironically, even the black is source here. It's all a part of it. It's all a part of the totality of it all. In that sense, there are, if you imagine a big ball of light, that is God, and in the black room, that's just the darkness, that's the void, that's the outside. It's not actually the outside, it's all part of source. And even I'll keep explaining that. But so this is God right here, this big little, I don't know why it keeps doing that. I guess it's just going to do that. Sorry. But this big circle here. Now, this is you right here. So you're one of these little balls. This one is me. That's your friend. That's your cousin. We all have, of course, negative within us. That's part of what it is. But as you go off and live your life, you go off. You're a ball of light. So Source, God, holds all creation. It's the masculine. It's the source point, if you will, of all creation. It's structure. It holds all knowledge. It understands every single possible outcome that you could ever have with any decision that you could ever have. So if we have unlimited timelines, unlimited life, you will have, depending on the choices you make in the lifetime, your source, your higher self, the piece of you that is still connected, will also understand every decision that can come after and every possible outcome. The free will aspect of it is actually you making a choice, because here's the thing that God doesn't know, in the same sense, because you're God too. The knowledge of all source, the peace that is all source, is known. So every outcome is known. However, you are the feminine aspect. You are the feminine aspect that goes out and experiences itself from a new perspective. You, this individual life that you have, every other life you have ever lived, that is you going out and experiencing yourself, God, from another perspective. And what happens is, as you go out and you have a new reflection, and you have these life experiences, you don't know what you're going to pick until you're picking it, because you have to forget that you're going to pick it, or else it wouldn't be free will. Just because we know every possible outcome, it's the same thing. There was that Marvel movie, and I think it was Endgame or something. Anyways, the one lady, she's like one of the popular people with Doctor Strange. I'm sorry if you're a comic book nerd. I can't remember all the people's names, but she was like the lady that had all this wisdom and stuff before I went to Doctor Strange. She said, "Oh, and I think even Doctor Strange knew that there were only a few outcomes where they win." And so that's God. Like, God, source itself, knows that you could possibly choose the right outcome, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose or any of that crap, because there is no such thing. All existences will play out. It's just you're only going to see through one of those existences, the one that you would actually choose. And that is why it is so important. Each and every life is actually critical, because it is the walking experience. You are the walking experience of God. You are the feminine. You are the bride of Christ, if you will. You go out and you experience, and then when you die, you come back and your light has expanded. This light here, boom, now it's bigger. Now it goes back into source. And guess what? Source gets bigger at the same time. Watch this. Source expands too, to fit that knowledge in, because what you've done now is you've taken source's knowledge of all things. You've lived the experience of itself from a new reflection. You've looked at yourself through a different lens, through a different mirror, and then you come back with wisdom. You combine that experience with the knowledge, and that is wisdom. That is how God expands. That is how God experiences itself from new ways. There is, all things already exist, and that's a whole other topic. But it, it's how it functions. It's a function of it all. So if, again, this blackness is nothingness, the God is all it is. It I wouldn't say it's non-existence, because by definition, non-existence doesn't exist. But it's nothingness. It's the void. It's it's still part of God, but it's the structure, and it's the stagnant energy that doesn't move sometimes. That all ends up falling back into God. Again, yin yang symbols, beautiful, because it's actually skewed, and there's a scientific picture of it. How we looked at these things, and it ended up that there's always a skew towards the positive. There's a, if you call it 50.1 and 49.9, there is always a skew towards the positive. That's how it creates movement. That's how it allows it to always come back to the positive. Now, let's go to the next part. I hope I haven't lost you here. This is all inside source again. The inside of existence. So form, order, and structure. So if we take this is a complicated topic here, and you will not hear anyone else talking about this. You are hearing it first right now, unless you've watched my video from earlier. I actually don't even know if I posted on YouTube, because it glitched out halfway through. I know that's not going to happen this time, because people are finally ready for it. This is intense, because this, and it's gonna lead to this one next. So don't get ahead of yourself. Focus on this part right here, this beautiful part right here. If you were to take form, order, and structure, and existence, the side of God that is ordered, it would be this circle of light here, and I've put a barrier around it. So again, it's source, it's everything, even this darkness here, the nothingness, that is all actually inside of structure. That is the order, that is the space that expands as God expands. That is the infinite even flow of the breath of all that is. Now, with this, though, it's important to understand that there is the inside, but there is also the out. Nobody knows the out, because, or not nobody, but many souls, especially earthbound souls, don't understand that there's a structure outside of source itself. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this information to you isn't because it's going to be life changing. Maybe it will be for some of you, but you also have to understand that even in spirit, there is not many reasons for a structured being, which is you, me, everything you can ever think of in existence is part of structure. If you hold form, you are part of structure. If you're able to hold form, you are a part of the structured, what I call the in. You are part of the ordered, structured form of God. Again, both combining the masculine and the feminine. The reason why this information is so important is because there is actually an out. Now, why is there an out? Well, because before time, and again, it's I don't want to lose you here, because time itself doesn't exist and all this sort of crap. But there also is all time exists now, but there is also kind of this weird paradox where there's also kind of a start at the same time. How to explain it, because time doesn't exist. We won't worry about that. Don't worry about that right now, because that is kind of irrelevant. But everything actually, before ordered existence, before structured God and masculine existed, what existed before was just unformed thought, all potential, all structure, chaoticness, what I call the out of existence. Now, everything, the unstructured God, if you will, is still there. It did not go away. There is no, it is still there, creating, and it's waves, it's sounds, it's everything that you could think of, and it is still there. But what had to happen were the primordial forces had to essentially start to be able to hold any sort of form. Those things actually had to kind of create structure, because without structure, without that, nothing could hold form and could exist longer than a fraction of a second. There was no such thing. And so, as much as we talk about there not being a start point, there is, in the sense of there's a start point to ordered existence. And so that's how I'll frame that, because again, even you're not going to get this information from even many of the beings, the enlightened beings, because it has been irrelevant for them, because this stuff, they don't need to, they haven't done the meditations on it, and it's just, it's been unnecessary to the growth of any civilization, anything really, anywhere, until I guess it's gonna be used now or something. I don't know. Either way, I've put this little band around what I call structured existence. Everything is still outside. Again, this would be part of it too, blah blah blah, because there's no such thing as non-existent. Everything exists, and that's why even evil and bad and all that stuff is just reflections of God. And God is made of love and all that stuff. we still get choices, and each of us gets a preference because you're a unique expression of God. Some people choose to be Satanists, and that's just what they choose. Some people choose to be horrible people, and that's what they choose. Some people choose to be good, and that's just what they choose. And it's hard because from a human perspective there's judgment there, absolutely. Like, you can't live with people if you can't trust them. But from a spiritual perspective, it's all relevant, and it causes people to learn. It causes all of that stuff. Regardless, I will go back. I don't want to get lost because that's what I do in this. So if we envision this little circle as everything you ever know, every structure, every lifetime, everything you have ever known, everything you will ever know, because you cannot actually exist outside of this structure. I can't exist outside of this structure because it is formless. It does not. You can't hold your form. Now, there are beings that there is a braided bridge, if you will, and it is a braided bridge from outside of structure to inside. And there's actually a few of them, but we're gonna just focus on this one because the only relevant reason, because you have to remember, even in spirit, we all have jobs, we all do things, we have, you're a unique perspective and you like what you like, and even your oversoul, all that crap, you have purpose. Always, you exist, you have purpose. And the whole thing is there might be there's people that love the library, they're librarians, and then there's people that love knowledge. And so those people might those spirit might decide, hey, there would be benefit for me to have a peek outside. Now, if they were to go by themselves, they would essentially die, because and now this is the really interesting part with any of this. So if there is a being, and this is what I've been told again from my spirit team, if there is a being that chooses over and over and over and over and over and over, millions of times over, not to progress, not to slowly start to move, they become stagnant. The energy becomes so stuck that there is no progression, and they are only ever hindering anybody else. Those beings will be forced by angels and given a choice, by the way, to change. But if the ultimate God source, this piece here, the what I call the opening of source, everything, the center point of all knowledge that you would have, because again, it's ordered knowledge. There is a source point. And in that source point, a lot of people get thinking about the hall and all of that stuff, the Akashic records, and all of it's very close to the source point, because the source point itself is like it is God. It's everything you could imagine, and it's the ordered source point. So that source point is also a connection to the out, because it exists inside and outside. Now, for it's everything. So it doesn't have to be cautious of itself, if you will, because it's almost like the great eye of Sauron, sorry, in a way, not in a bad evil way, but in a way where it's like it peers through both lenses. It sees outwards into its order and backwards into its chaos. It understands all sides. It understands every point, because it's like a hive mind. It is able to connect with all things. That's where you get your all knowledge. So there might be a being that necessary would need to peer into that for learning, for understanding, because again, we're always growing, we're always learning, and that being's goal, that being's understanding is part of itself, is part of God, is part of you and me. It's there for a reason, and it's always learning. We're always growing. growing, always learning, always going through the changes. Now, that being said, I think it is critical. I think it is absolutely critical to understand that, again, negative beings, if they don't move, they will be released, if you will. What is being released? Being released is being forced back into source. And being forced back into source isn't a punishment. And so you have to understand this isn't a punishment. It is, but it also isn't, because, some beings actually actively choose to go back into some source. But that is only a decision you can make once, because you can never replicate that individual personality again. You can never pull that up from the ultimate creation again, because now there will be a record of that being, but that being can never exist in the exact same way, because once you go back to source, once you merge back with source, you lose all individuality to never have it again, because there is no way to pull some. It would be like pulling, if you have and this is a very small thing, let's say you had a bucket of sand, right? And you reach in and you grab out all the sand, right? And now from that handful of sand, those very unique pieces, you make a being, right? Well, you throw all that sand back in the bucket and you reach in again, and guess what? You're never going to pull out the same handful of sand. It's just not, you can't do it. Is there a probability where it's like, yeah, probability? Yes, but the whole point is that handful of sand did not work. Or if it did work, it chose to go back into the bucket. So you make a conscious choice to go back into the bucket, or you're being forced back into the bucket because because God itself, all of us combined, spirit, everybody's like, it is better if you are back in the bucket than you are, because if you are not growing, and now this isn't meant to scare anybody, this isn't like this, but it is in a way forever death, but at the same time it's not actually death, it's actually expansion. That being goes back into all, and it's it's part of creation now. It's part of the all that is, and it always was. But in that combination of sand, all those unique particles, they did not. They were hindering others' progress, right? Because so people that constantly choose evil over and over and over and over and over again, beings and spirits and things that manipulate and lie and are just negative, horrible things, will be chosen to go back in if they can't ever grow. Now, because you see that spark in a negative person, that means, and that's the interesting thing here, is that is something that is unique, and you see it, and those things actually allow, you're able to sense that there is some good. And so eventually, over time, over millions of years, or millions of years, again, time isn't is a physical construct, but those things will actually go out and eventually kind of come back towards the light, if you will. And that is all things come back to the light. And so the only things that are ever forced not back into the light, or forced back into the light, are the ones that stagnate, are the ones that don't move, are the ones that constantly choose negative over and over and over and over and over again. And it's very rare anybody on Earth. I don't think I'm asking, right? There's no, I haven't got the sense that there's been earthbound beings that have ever even gone back, because Earth is a school, right? And there may have been spirit beings that have interacted with Earth in spirit form that may have been forced back, but certainly the benevolence is always going to be there, and it's always going to guide beings to the right place. So they're again, you're here for positive reasons. You're growing, even if you don't think so. Even the worst of us are growing and learning. So yeah, you don't have. It's not something you have to worry about, but certainly that's how it works. So if the a being doesn't move, they it's like, here, you can only give people on Earth so many chances to make the right decisions before you have to lock them up, right? If somebody makes a bad decision and hurts somebody, you lock them up, and maybe they get another chance, depending on what they do. But if you don't get, you can't live with everybody else, so you get locked up or exiled or whatever. And even the most heinous ones, they don't get a choice. Like, they've uh, created their own actions, and they have to actually be responsible for those actions, and there are consequences to our actions, both good and bad, of course. And so some people, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but some people, end up, just harming and harming and harming and harming and harming, and they can't be with the rest of society. So those people, there's punishments, there's consequences to those actions, and that's not to say that they can't come back in another life and be better. Absolutely. But from a human perspective, if you are a small percentage and you're hurting the large percentage over and over and over with no reason, with no understanding, no growth, no understanding of your actions, and no remorse, then you just don't get the opportunities with everybody else. And that's actually a spiritual perspective. So you have to understand that it's, even suicidal empathy it can be a dangerous form, because part of spirit is actually strength and holding boundaries with people. People don't get to just walk all over us, right? People, holding boundaries is key, because if you don't, not only are they going to walk all over you, and society itself, but those people also, you're depriving them of the lessons that they learn. There's many people, and I give this example sometimes, there's many people that are severely overweight. You see the 800-pound life or whatever. It's like, it's sad. But then there's always somebody enabling them, giving them food, and not helping them learn the lesson or experience the hardship, because they feel guilty. But that's a them problem. They need to work on that guilt and allow that being to learn the lesson that they're here to learn, because enabling doesn't help. So anyways, going back to this, this is the inside again, the structured universe, and the outside. Now there's this braided connection here. There are some beings that, primordial forces, if you will, that have an oversoul, that have structure to them, that were kind of there as the structure and order was created. And so they're able to kind of walk in and walk out. Now, when they walk out, they have the ability to adapt their form in such a way that their form remains, only because, again, they were some of the first forms to form. And then there's different beings that actually help hold structure up. You may have seen the classic angels. There are different witnesses and guardians and all this stuff, and architects. They're called architects, that are able to hold, and they kind of work inside and outside. It'd be like, if you were to actually see the outside, it would just be this chaotic, lightning storm, if you will. And then in the middle, you would see these beings working around this structure, holding it up, and they're outside, but they're actually, connected to the inside. They were able to hold the codes of resonance and hold the frequencies needed to hold structure together. And so taking that journey is necessary for some beings, but most beings don't need to. There's no lesson in that for anybody, and you can get that knowledge even through, as I did. It's like, you can have this knowledge, and so I encourage you, if you are a spiritual person, to meditate on this, or to ask your guides, or to talk about this, because I do want it to be something that people start to understand. is there. It exists. It's part of source. And again, that you need a being that can go between. The way I've been described it and envisioned it is structured existence is like this beautiful cathedral, right? So outside of existence is again this chaos, blah 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 blah. Just lightning storm, and I have a picture that I'll show you in a sec. But here's our source point. So this is the door, if you will, to structured existence. So it exists on both sides. This is your spirit point. It would be a circle, of course, but I just made a triangle for some reason. I don't know. Anyways, so if you were looking from the out, looking at the structured universe, it would be this big, beautiful cathedral in a it would actually be more like a resonant cathedral. It would be structured with mandalas and all these repeating fractal patterns and stuff. Anyways, that's irrelevant. Just if you think of a beautiful cathedral with a door, you go into the door and everything you've ever known, everything that could possibly exist in an ordered, structured state is on the in. That's us. We're always in. So we're always in this beautiful cathedral, even the negative, all of it. It's all in this beautiful cathedral. But there is an out. And so when you are looking in the cathedral, you're looking at the door inside the cathedral, and you see the light door, if you will, and that is the source point. And that source point leads to the out, and it leads to the in. It is the connection between it all. It is how it all kind of functions, and maybe it's the whole side of the the beautiful cathedral window, might be connected to that too, where you just have, and then like it could kind of come through, and obviously there could be, if you even think of like, what are those things when we have electrons connected through, and they both spin together. If you spin one, the other spins. Oh my God, it's like the most obvious thing. I hate when I forget things. It's ADHD for you. Anyways, that would also exist. Just a beacon, if you will, of source, of God, of love, of everything, and that's just like the point, the center point between existence that we know, ordered, structured existence, and chaotic existence, where form cannot hold, right? And that is the key. The out can no longer hold form. So if you open the door, if you will, and you walk out, guess what? You don't exist anymore, and you never will. It's like if you choose, and beings do choose that. Like good beings do choose. They're like, I've learned everything. I want to be part of it all again, and they just toss their sand in the bucket, and that's it. But then there are ones that are forced out the door if they don't. Ever grow and learn, and they just hurt other people and hurt or other spirits, and they hinder things. They get kicked out. That's just how it goes. That's why, again, even in physical reality, there's these repeating fractals. There's these repeating expressions. The great spiral of life, if you will, just will repeat. So of course there's always going to be beings that come into existence, if you will, that can't grow or choose not to grow or any of that stuff, because that is an option. That's part of it. That's throwing mud at the wall and seeing if it sticks. And sometimes what sticks is horrible. Right. And you're like, no, erase that. Let's try again. And it's hard. You can't think about it from human logic because it's not like that. You can't think, because empathy can play a double-edged sword on that one. So don't try to think about that too hard, because you might just we're sensitive people. We might just upset ourselves with that. So don't worry about that. Nobody is ever going to be like that. So don't worry about that. Again, Earth is a school. So now, like the Matrix room, if you've seen the Matrix, where they're able to create anything, all potential exists. But in this room, this room would only exist in the in, because it is the only place where form can hold its structure. So it even has greater potential than what is inside. So again, if you are inside here, This room, this matrix room, would exist on the inside. It can't exist on the outside because these things would not be able to hold form. When you think of everything that ever exists or will exist is already existent in this form. And anything that's not existent gets thrown through this door, if you will. Anything that decides to hold form, if you ever channel something or like, now it's not going to so much happen on because we're in spirit right now, so we actually pull our when we bring an idea to earth, we're pulling from what's already in spirit. We're making things that, when you get an idea, that's a channeled thought from spirit, so those things already exist in the in, so you wouldn't be able to really come up with anything. There are beings on the in that are channeling things from the out, right? And they channel something new into the in existence, and all of a sudden it's part of everything, and it's part of structured existence. Sorry, but this room would again only exist in here. So I hope that makes sense, because it can hold form. So this is a reflection of the source's true form on the outside. So this is what it was actually kind of like before ordered existence. And that's why people are like, there's got to be a start point. There's got to be a start point. Well, surprise, surprise, there is a start point. It's just not what you expected. It's not like, because everything, there was a point when everything kind of went bam, and everything existed in this chaotic form. And then over time, the chaos started, the resonance started vibrating together, and then beings, primordial forces were kind of created through that. And then through that, those primordial forces were working with other kind of things, and they were starting to hold some version of form. And they were like, oh my goodness, if we want to survive, if we want to have more things, we have to create form. So they started kind of moving together, and these strong forces were able to work together, if you will, to create what you would know as ordered God or structured God, or again, the cathedral, the inside. Everything that exists happened because of these beings. I'm going to go over here just for a second. There is something else. I can't remember where it is now. See. I'm mixing videos now. So I was working on the realms of existence. You might have seen this from other ones. I don't remember. Whatever. Anyways, going back, so with this, this is again outside of, this is source's true form. So things couldn't exist. There's resonance, there's frequencies, there's sounds, there's like things, blah blah blah. Everything is just chaos. It's always just chaos outside, because new things are just popping in and out of existence, if you will. If it's a thought, if a source has a thought, it's basically like just ADHD and autism, right? Autism holds the form, and then ADHD is the the chaotic, expression of God, if you will. Then you have the structured thing, and they work in tandem. If ADHD was kind of the original, if you will, it's maybe I won't say it like that, but it's just it's just formless. It pops in, pops out, pops in, pops out, pops in, pops out of reality, and only things that are necessary ever actually hold order, or some things that probably existed that we'll never know about because they existed for a fraction of a second and they're gone, right? And they're just never needed to hold form more than that. That's why when you create something, or spirit creates something in ordered existence, it stays. And sometimes they're pulling from outside of that. But yeah, that's just how it functions. I don't know what to tell you. This is what I've understood and gathered. Again, this is what you would see if you were looking from here in. You'd be like, oh my gosh, there's this beautiful cathedral that's actually holding its form, right? And you go through thing and blah blah blah. You're right there. Now let's see. Okay. I've already explained all that. Okay. Sorry, I wrote this so long ago. I just wanted to. Some beings were before form and time, can allow other glimpses of the formless without losing themselves. This is because they're first resonators and holders of form. They watched it take shape as they danced around in their endless potential. Things you would call primordial forces helped along with other beings that had started to hold versions of structure before structure existed. That is how, again, it was explained to me. And so I wrote this down. And yeah, anyway.